Hi there, and you're watching The Week Ahead, where we have a look at some key economic events that could have an impact on the markets this week. Right now, I have Chief Economist Goolam Ballim from Standard Bank on the line. So let's start with South Africa's economy. Now, do you think we will see a rebound in growth in the second quarter after disappointing first quarter results?
Yes, it is likely that the second quarter's growth performance may be as much as 3 times quicker than that of the first quarter. But having said that, we must recognize the first quarter's performance was dismal, with the economy not growing faster than 1% on an annualized basis. So from that very, very poor performance, it was likely that the second quarter would be better. However, seeing through these figures, there is still a general expectation that South Africa's economy won't do much better than 2% for the entire calendar year. So in all respects, that would represent a fairly tepid rate of growth. And in terms of the way financial markets have been responding, we have seen for some while now that investors, especially foreign investors, have been at best lukewarm in terms of their appetite for South Africa's stocks or bond market assets, and that's likely to remain the case through the year.
And moving over to the US, Thursday's revised second quarter GDP number is expected to show improvement. So what sort of figure are you expecting? And of course, what other data do you think will have an impact on the markets?
So we think that generally the markets will look to America in terms of the breadth of data from retail activity, manufacturing signals, as well as the general messaging coming out of Jackson Hole, which is where central bankers are gathering. And I think effectively the markets are anticipating that the U.S. economy will continue to show on balance recovery and improvement, and therefore the idea of so-called Fed tapering beginning in September remains a very likely possibility, and in turn the markets will continue to grapple with the idea of diminishing liquidity over the near to medium term, and markets reconciling themselves with underlying economic fundamentals, and therefore whether especially stock markets are too expensive or fairly valued. And if anything, I think we can look forward to volatility in financial markets as investors seek to determine that balance of force.
And now let's have a look at the UK. All eyes will be watching Mark Carney this week. Do you think this speech will just affirm his intention to hold borrowing costs at an all-time low until we see unemployment drop to 7%?
Well, I think the novelty was at the very first meeting, and in the sense of the Bank of England signaling that it will be more activist in providing forward guidance. So I think from there on, we won't see too much drama, and if anything, a signal that the Bank of England will attempt to be as responsive to England's weak economic growth, as well as attempting to maintain the expectations that the Bank of England will keep low rates for a length of time so as to foster a financial environment that is more supportive of economic recovery.
And Goolam, what data releases for the Eurozone will you be watching out for?
So there are a few critical things coming out of the Eurozone. For instance, later this week, we will see some consumer confidence indicators as well as the unemployment rate for July. Sentiment remains patchy but mixed. So in regions such as Germany, there is a greater degree of optimism, relatively speaking. However, concerns surrounding, say, Greece and Portugal, and maybe even Italy, remain at the surface. So, on the whole, Europe will, I think, continue to signal an economy that has the feel of recession, with only pockets of relatively better performance. And Germany will be perhaps at the vanguard of that messaging.
And before we finish, let's have a look at Asia. What are you expecting to see from Asian markets this week?
Out of Asia, and especially China, I suspect most observers have been monitoring the trial of Bo Xilai and attempting to see whether anything there will emerge to give some signal of China's strategic approach. And of course, there has been some curveballs in the sense that Mr. Xilai has sought to defend the accusations are alleged and placed at him, and he's seemingly signaling that he is innocent of any wrongdoing. But that said, the commitment to reforms, the commitment to fighting corruption, and the commitment to the party remaining market-friendly and challenging any post-Maoist tendencies, where there are some who believe that the capitalist system is not going to work in an enduring way, and some revert back to socialism, and even stronger state forces is needed. So the trial may have the undertones in terms of signaling how firm China is going to be in a genuine sense of commitment to governance and the nature of its political economy as reflected by the balance between markets and state-led involvement in the economy.
Great, thank you very much for that. Well, coming up on Dukascopy TV, I will be looking at some currency pairs for Monday's targets in focus. See you then.